I'll call to order the regular meeting of the Common Council of the City of Platteville for Tuesday, July 28th, and we'll start with roll call.
Barbara Doss.
Here.
Barbara Stackhausen.
Here.
Tom Knoll.
Here.
Ken Killian.
Here.
Eileen Nichols.
Here.
Amy Seaboth Wilson. Here. Mike Den.
Here.
First item this evening is always a pleasure, the ceremonial swearing in of our new police officer, Corey J. Lee.
Is this yours? Oh, you can stay there. Just want to make sure.
Good evening. It's, like you said, it's always a pleasure to introduce our newest officer, Corey Lee. She comes to us from Monroe, Wisconsin, where she was active in the Police Explorer post. She's, like many of our officers, a graduate of UWP and the Southwest Tech Recruit School. So she started with us shortly after the 4th of July, and things are going very well. So.
I, Corey Jane Lee,
Having been appointed to the office of police officer.
have been appointed to the office of police officer,
Swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin.
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
And will faithfully
and will faithfully
and impartially
discharge the duties of said office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability,
So help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And ready to sign?
You're welcome to say something, Corey, if you'd like to, or?
Chief summed it up pretty good, but I'm excited to start here. Work for a community that's done a lot for me, building my career, obviously going to school here. I spent 4 years here, all positive, so that's a plus. And I'm excited to give back to the community and get started in my career. So thank you very much for coming out. I know some of you didn't have a choice, but thank you anyway.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, that's what this is.
Before I continue with the meeting, I would just like to note for anybody in the audience who would like to speak on either citizens' comments, or if you have something on the agenda that you would like to comment on, there are green sheets over in the table where you came in, and if you would please give your name, and if you'd like to speak or just register in favor or against. Thank you. All right, next item is a special presentation, Platteville Main Street City Hall lease update.
Good evening. My name is Jack Ledke. I'm the Executive Director for the Platteville Main Street Program. And I handed out to each of you actually a summary of the financials so far on the incubator space, indicating our expenses versus the 3 months of revenue that we've experienced. But that's not really what I want to talk about tonight. I was asked to give a kind of an update on the status of this experiment, if you will, about the makerspace. And we're really excited because we have a tenant in there that actually came to us from the university, a group of young men, and they have been very active in producing a product, an app situation for phones. And I was told today that they're planning on launching tomorrow. So they're excited about it. They've got the development done on it. And we think that it probably would not have happened in such a timely fashion if we hadn't been able to work with the council to get this space for them. And our plan here is, of course, to market the space and get more tenants in there, but that hinges on two things. One is the movement of the CompuNet people to a different space in the building so we can get their equipment out of the common area there, and that is progressing as well. And the other element is that we believe that our next possibility for tenants is going to be with the university students as they come back. Again, we've already talked to some of the people on campus who would be mentoring these students who would have entrepreneurial bent, and so we are excited about the fact that in the first part of September, we'll be able to start a very active marketing campaign. Now, I realize this is not just for the students from the university, it's for anybody in the community. So I would encourage anyone that's listening tonight to get in touch with me, and we'll see if we can work out a deal for space for them. And again, I thank the council for their participation in this. We have been able to go in there, paint, clean up the space, and make it presentable for tenants to move in part of it. And we'll finish that process as we move forward with another tenant. Is there any questions? Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks for the report, Jack. Next item is EMS and EMS transition to Southwest Health update.
Good evening. Brian Allen, EMS Administrator for City of Platteville. Just want to give you an update on the status of the transition from Platteville EMS to the hospital-based system. It has been 2 months since the vote. In that time, all 7 townships have agreed to the amendment. So all 7 have signed on. So the ambulance district isn't going to change at all that way. The name is going to be Southwest Health Emergency Medical Service. So that's been decided on. License has been applied for. That was done about 2.5 weeks ago. We had to wait for some things before we could do that. So that has been done. Hoping to get approval from the state shortly. The gentleman that has to take care of that also had to take on some additional duties because the paramedic coordinator resigned. So he is now taking care of 3 levels of service for the state. So his workload increased. The Medicare and Medicaid notification will be done once the license is issued rather than filing the paperwork and filing more paperwork saying, here's our license. They're going to wait to do that all at once. The building process, we've done some station tours and we met this morning with an architect and the construction company. So that's moving along very quickly. Staffing and personnel, tomorrow the staff will be able to apply for positions at Southwest Health for on-call EMTs. That application process will be open for about 2 weeks, and then we'll be conducting short interviews, bringing them on board. And the logos and marketing, we're still working with the marketing department at the hospital, but I actually have a meeting with them later this week to go over the ambulances and the logo and everything. So we're moving right along.
Any questions, anybody?
I have one question on building. Are you going to provide a safe room in the building?
Yes, that was discussed today. Was a safe room for the staff.
Will the people that stay overnight, will they be in the safe room or have access to it? Or will the safe room be on the main floor or basement or what?
There's only going to be one floor. That's
One floor for the whole thing?
as far as the discussion for today. It's going to be one level. Our communications and report room will be what's going to be designated as a safe room. So they will have access to it if they're there overnight or during the day. The staff will have access to that room at all times. Even if it's a locked room, they'll be able to gain access to it.
Any other questions?
And has the agreement been signed yet among all parties?
Yes, all 7 townships in the city have signed.
And is hospital now paying the bills? Or how soon will it start?
Once we transition over, once the switch is made. We're still the City of Platteville Ambulance Service. The transition hasn't been made yet.
You have to wait for state approval.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much, Brian.
Thanks.
First item on the agenda is consideration of the consent calendar. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to their routine nature or previous discussion. Please indicate to the council president if you would prefer separate discussion and action. First item is July 14th, 2015 regular meeting minutes. B is payment of bills. C is appointments to boards and commissions, and I am appointing Patrice Steiner this evening to the Board of Appeals. D is licenses. There's a request to extend a liquor license premises to include public parking, and I understand the licensing committee met on that and may have something that they would like to tell us on that. 1 year or 2 year operator license to serve alcohol. 2 requests for permits, a walk run to Suicide Prevention Resource Center on September 26th, a banner permit to UW Platteville for the homecoming in October, and Resolution 1518-2014, the Compliance Maintenance Annual Report, which is in our packet. And I would note that it was a really exemplary report. I mean, I don't think there was like nothing in there that was a problem. So, please relay from the council our compliments to the staff because
Thank you.
they obviously
Yes.
are doing an excellent job.
Thank you very much.
I ask that the extension for liquor license premises be withdrawn from the consent agenda, and with that request, I move approval of the consent agenda except that item.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to accept the consent calendar except for item D1, and we'll vote.
Doss,
Yes.
Stackhouse,
Yes.
Nall,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
Nichols,
Yes.
Seaboth Wilson,
Yes.
Den,
Yes.
motion carries.
On the item pulled from the consent agenda, Nick's on Second Street had asked for, to extend his premises into the public parking lot on the evening of August 15th, continuing into the morning of August 16th. And there is a fee of $50 for that. The license committee has approved that many times. This also included the request to have a band outside in that space until 12:30 a.m. on August 16th. The license committee on a 2-1 vote voted to recommend to the council a ending time of no later than midnight. So I would make a motion to extend the liquor license premises to the public parking lot on 8/15/15 for Nick's at 74 North Second Street, noting that the end time for the outside band should be midnight.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
what is the usual ending time for outside music?
Yes.
There isn't one.
We don't have one.
Well, there is at
Yes,
Dairy
there's
Days.
the annex has outside music.
It does, but there actually is no noise ordinance for ending time of music. We researched it. That's why Barb did what she did to bring this to the council, because there actually is no ordinance on that. And we didn't, as a licensing committee, we didn't feel it was our duty to determine times. We're determining licenses, so we brought it to the council with the time issue. Correct?
Yeah, there's a lot of what I would call lore around these end times, because I said, in the years that I worked at UW Platteville, it was always 10 o'clock, we thought. I guess we thought there was some kind of law. And then, various people have said, but it's really this time or that time. But we did have Jan look through our ordinances, and there really isn't a time that you could find in any of our ordinances. So I think it's lore that it was at such and such a time. So we just felt that midnight and the council might want to consider live bands and outside playing at some time, but we aren't here recommending any ordinance. We're just recommending a midnight end for this particular event.
Well, it's something that needs to be considered because our neighborhood is subjected to music 3 or 4 times a week during the better weather, and some people complain about it. It needs to be an ending time.
Well, and so that's something you might want, we might want to develop some information on. But at this point in time, Ken, the noise issues are handled on a complaint basis, and if it's quote-unquote too loud, then the establishment is asked to, but there really isn't an end time, my understanding.
Well,
That
they
may
could-
be something that the council
Yeah, so they
discusses.
could go until 2:30.
Yeah,
What's closing time?
I don't know.
30.
2:30.
2:30. So they could play until 2:30.
Right.
Okay, but for the interest
But
of
thi-
tonight, we are just talking about
But
one
this-
particular
This particular
request.
premise,
Trying to find
this
out
particular
information.
date,
Yeah, no, I
August
appreciate that.
15th, ending at midnight.
All right,
Well, you got a second on the table, right?
yes, we have a motion and a second, and so we'll vote.
Doss,
Yes?
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Nall,
Yes.
Kellyanne,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Seaboth Wilson,
Yes.
Den,
Yes.
motion carries.
Citizens' comments, observations, and petitions, we have one request, John Reisick. John, if you will come up to the microphone and give your name and address. And we do ask that you keep your comments short, certainly no longer than 5 minutes, shorter is even better.
I'll try,
All right.
first. Because at the end, there's gonna be a test.
No, I know.
My name is John Reisick, and I live at 595 North Chestnut Street in Platteville. And across the street from my house is a house that sits kind of kittywampus on the lot, and that address is, I think 215 West Dewey. I live on the corner of North Chestnut Street and West Dewey.
Is this the house in the picture?
Yeah, yes. My wife and I have lived at this address for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years. And the gentleman that owns this house that I'm speaking about with this wonderful tree that you all have pictures of lives in Lancaster, but has several rentals around Platteville. His first name is Harvey. I'm sorry, I can't tell you his last name. I've been talking with this gentleman, Mr. First Name Harvey, for many, many, many years. And the reason I'm concerned is there are power lines that are running east and west on this Dewey Street, south side of Dewey Street. And there's a pole kind of at the west end of Harvey's property, and there's a pole right on the north side of my home. As you can well see, this tree, I don't know how it's been up through all these tornadoes and wind we've been having. But one of these days it's going to come down. And when it does come down, it's not only going to break the pole on the west end and my pole on the east end. But my wife and I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, spent several $1,000s getting a new, whatever you call that pipe on the side of the house, service pipe with all new wires, and then going into the basement, new wires, and then we have a new, brand new 200 amp fuse panel box. Like I say, I can't get much out of Harvey, so I've tried Power and Light. Can't get much out of them. That's why I'm here tonight. About a year ago, I decided one day I'm going to run down to City Garage on Valley Road and talk with Mr. Johnson. Well, Mr. Johnson at that time was new in Platteville and just couldn't even figure out where North Chestnut Street is, let alone where this tree is that I was talking about. But while I was there talking with him, Mr. Crowfoot came in. So he got in the conversation, and there's a map high on the wall in Mr. Johnson's office with the streets. And engineers have rulers with 3 sides on them, and obviously each side has a different scale on it. Mr. Crowfoot and Mr. Johnson discussed maybe where this tree is and what scale to use and whatever. And then Mr. Crowfoot, with his good pants on, his good shirt on, and a tie on, climbed up on the top of 2 metal file cabinets so he could get on his knees and try and measure. The catch to this is how far is it from the center of the street to onto this Harvey's property? I think it's a tree that belongs to the city. And that's what we're going to try and solve here tonight. Luckily, Mr. Crowfoot got down off the file cabinets without breaking an ankle or a leg. About a week or so later, I guess I was at work, and my wife took a phone call from Mr. Johnson and said, "We're going to be working on this, Mrs. Reisick, and studying whatever, and we'll get back with you." Well, it's been a good 13 months, and we have never heard back from Mr. Johnson. Then back in about January or February of this year, 2015, I don't recall if Mr. Peters called me or I called Mr. Peters, but he and I had several discussions on the telephone talking about this tree that's someday going to come down and mess up my wires. Well, he said, "John, I'll work on this and we'll see, and whatever, I'll get back with you." Well, I'm still waiting for Mr. Peters to get back to me. So I'm sure all of you remember here about 4, 5, 6 weeks ago on June 22nd, we had another tornado and pretty bad storm go through Platteville. So on the next day, Tuesday, which would have been the 23rd, a gentleman knocked at our front door in our home and identified himself as a man from, I'm sorry, I keep saying Wisconsin Power and Light. I worked for Wisconsin Power and Light, so I'm kind of from the old days. Introduced himself as a gentleman that's going around town and looking for damage and this and that and whatever. And he said, "Can you tell me who owns that tree across the street?" And my wife and I said, "Well, his name is Harvey. We can't give you his last name, but it's not in the best shape, is it?" "No," he said, "it's not." He called it a sugar maple, and he claims that sugar maples are notorious for splitting and coming down on the wires.
John, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're already used your 5 minutes, so if
all
you
right.
could just wrap this up. What is your request this
Well,
evening?
I want to have Mr. Johnson, Mr. Crowfoot, or Mr. Peters either come to our front door someday or call either myself or my wife and tell us, yes, this tree belongs to the city. No, this tree does not belong to the city. If it belongs to the city, the third picture that I handed out shows a tree after the storm on the 22nd that just kind of got topped and the trunk is still there. If they could do that to this tree that I'm speaking of, I'd be happy. Because then when it splits and comes down, it's below the wires and there's going to be no problem. But if it comes down on the wires and pulls some of the wires out of my box in the basement, this gentleman from Power and Light said he's known several instances of when that happens, the house gets on fire. I'm not interested in having a fire. So I thank you very much for letting me have this time tonight, and like I say, I'm hoping that somebody, either this table or you folks, will contact either myself or my wife and tell us, yes, it's a city tree, no, it is not a city tree.
Howard, is it possible?
I can answer that right now. No, it is not a city tree. The city right-of-way ends approximately 1 foot behind the curb. That tree is on private property. Mr. Peters has been working with the owner to ask him to remove that tree. But it is not a city tree.
The gentleman from the power company, Power and Light, whatever, said if there were a sidewalk there on Chestnut Street running north and south, that tree would have been gone long ago because the sidewalk would be right where the tree is. So I can't see why it's not on city property, but you measure from the center of the street and how far in, or how far from the center of the street?
The right-of-way of Chestnut Street is extremely narrow, and as I said, we've looked at it, and the city right-of-way ends approximately 1 foot behind the curb on each side of the street.
All right, so it's up to Harvey to get it out of there, it sounds like.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry.
What is that?
That was me, sorry. Stacy, you want to ask Howard a question?
I'll make a comment.
Okay.
My comment is that, my recollection is that the city has the power to request removal of trees that are on private property. Is that correct?
I need to review the
my
ordinances and work with Luke, our forester, on that. But I know that he has told me that he's working with the property owner on this situation.
And we have a management plan to remove high-risk trees in the city, and this sounds like it is a high-risk tree.
Our management plan is for city-owned trees.
But also I said we have an ordinance that we can remove trees on private property.
Mr. Peters and I will review that.
Okay. Thanks, John. We have no other citizens' comments and observations. We have requests to speak on some of the other items on the agenda, so ask the people to speak then. Reports in the packet. Library Board, I have nothing to add. Water and Sewer Commission, Killian, Knoll, or Stockhausen.
Nothing to add.
Community Safe Routes Committee, Seaboth Wilson.
Nothing to add.
Parks, Forestry, and Recreation Committee, Seaboth Wilson.
Nothing to add again.
Museum Board, Stockhausen.
Nothing to add.
Commission on Aging, Killian.
No addition, except that I'll try to announce next time there's a picnic coming up in August, senior picnic.
And we do
And
have
to be at least 50.
you have to be at least 50.
50.
And I think there are also a couple of openings on the Commission on Aging board, so if someone is interested in serving on that particular commission, please fill out an application and get it to the city. Other reports in the packet, department progress reports. Any questions on any of those?
Well, I had a question on recreation. Can anybody answer about the heater at the Platteville Family Aquatic Center? Luke is not here. And is this a matter of heater is failing and trying to come up with who is at fault? Anybody know about this?
Luke is primarily working on this. However, I've been working with him. He's not available right at the moment. There was a failure in the heater, and we believe that it's a warranty issue, and we are working with our contractor and the manufacturer to determine the root cause of the issue and get it fixed.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, anyone?
Pardon me?
Any other questions or comments on the board, or the,
What exactly were you talking about, Ken? Reference to which, was it something in the swimming pool?
yeah, it was in the Department Progress Report
Okay, I
from,
didn't get through all that.
from Luke.
Okay.
The
Is it variable speed drive?
the heater itself had a failure in the heating tubes, and we believe it's a warranty issue, and there's some disagreement. We've been working with our folks on that.
Thank you, Howard.
I was just trying to find out what's going on. Thank you.
All right, any other questions on the reports? Seeing none, we're gonna go to the first action item, which is contract 1015, street repairs and maintenance. Howard?
Okay. The council has allocated $250,000 towards street maintenance for multiple different items. We solicited bids for our 3/4 inch overlay, as we've done in the past. Back on July 1st, we opened the one bid from Iverson Construction. Last year, we did roughly 34,000 square yards at $3.80 a square yard. And this year, we're doing 54,000 square yards, and the price is a little bit cheaper, probably due to the larger quantity plus oil prices. And so, based on this, I'm recommending award of the contract to Iverson Construction for the price of $203,173.10.
Any questions from the council?
The remaining part of the 250,000, is there any designation of that amount yet? That'd be 47,000?
Some of that will be for contract striping, the painting of stripes on certain streets, and some of it will be for materials, for crack filling and things like that, so that we can continue with that. We've also done some other small repair areas, such as the area on Ellen next to the fire station and places like that that are part of that allocation.
Thank you.
I move to award contract 1015 street repairs and maintenance to Iverson Construction for the bid price of $203,173.10.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll vote.
Doss?
Yes.
Stockhausen?
Yes.
Nall?
Yes.
Killian?
Yes?
Nichols?
Yes.
Seaboth Wilson?
Yes.
Den?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item is a loan and development agreement for 1245 North 4th Street. Joe?
Okay, this is related to the former radio station property that the property owner is looking to redevelop for housing development. We had talked about this previously. They have requested, and the council's previously talked about some assistance for that development. The requested assistance would be in the form of a $265,000 loan, 2.5% interest, and a $100,000 grant to help get that project up and running. Last time we had a draft agreement, and there was some discussion about the collateral that the council felt was necessary for this project. Based on some additional information that the attorney received, it was agreed that we would not require the mortgage on the second property, so that language has been removed. So basically, it's the personal guarantees on the part of the investors in that development for that project. So otherwise, it's a 34-unit multifamily housing development, includes a affordable component as their target, and they are receiving tax credits to help with that from the state. So there's certain parts of this that are set up to allow them to get the tax credits that is part of the project as well. So staff does recommend approval of the development agreement, which approving the agreement would approve the loan and the cash grant. So it would only have to be one motion. Staff does have some recommendations as far as the source of the funds, particularly the loan. Recommendation to take $223,677 as a transfer from the CIP fund balance, and then the remaining $41,323 from the street construction CIP. And then I think the council had previously agreed that the $100,000 would come from the funds that we received from the sale of the former Kallenbach property. So that part of it has already been agreed to. I would point out that part of this is identified in the budget, but not all of it, so it would technically be a budget amendment, so it would take a 2/3 vote to approve. Any questions?
With this motion, Joe, we word all three of those paragraphs all into one, the last three up from, not the big one in the recommendation, but the last three underneath that, you want?
Yeah, well, the motion would be to approve the development agreement, but, it should
Which would include all
specify
this stuff.
where the funds are coming from,
Okay,
particularly the loan. I think we've already agreed to the $100,000,
Okay.
so it'd be the loan funds.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the developers agreement. Sorry, Mike, did you
it's
want to do
okay.
it?
Go ahead. I'll do the second.
With a loan of $265,000, $223,677 transferred from CIP fund balance, and $41,323 from the street construction CIP account, and the $100,000 grant from the funds that remain after the sale of the former Kallenbach properties.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? We'll vote.
Doss,
Yes.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Nall,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Seabolt Wilson.
Yes.
Den,
Yes.
motion carries.
Item C is a conditional use permit request for 1575 Edgewood Court. Joe?
Okay, this involves a request for an intensive home occupation. At that location, the resident at that address would like to operate a massage therapy business out of her home. She would be the only employee of that business. It would be appointments scheduled beforehand. The operation would be run from Monday through Saturday, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. There'd be no physical changes to the property regarding this business. The Planning Commission did review it and recommended approval, and staff also recommends approval. Are there any questions?
The usual question, Joe, if this permit is approved and is this person a renter or owner?
A renter.
Renter, okay, then if she moves, then permit dies?
A conditional use permit theoretically could remain with the property.
But the person's a renter.
Then if somebody else wants to rent and continue operation as approved, theoretically they could do that. I think that would be highly unlikely, but that would be possible.
But she can't take it with her to go to another place.
Correct.
Okay.
Other questions?
What does the owner have any questions? Okay.
Not that I'm aware.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit to allow an intensive home occupation for massage therapy business as described in the attached staff memo at 1575 Edgewood Court.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. We'll vote.
Doss,
Yes.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Nall,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Seabolt Wilson,
Yes.
Den,
Yes.
motion carries.
Next item is a redevelopment loan extension request for 85 East Main Street. Joe?
Yeah, the council and the RDA had previously approved a loan to help with the redevelopment of this property, actually going back to 2007. But that loan is now due. So it basically was approved as a balloon payment, and that balloon payment is due August 1st. So the property owners have requested an extension of that loan for an additional 2 years. At this point, they're unable to obtain conventional financing. They've got too much debt on the property based on the value of that property. So they've been working with some local banks and have been unable to convert this over to conventional financing. So they would request an extension to give them more time to achieve that. Right now, basically the city borrowed the funds from Livingston State Bank, and then we turned around and provided a loan to the Bailey Building owners at the same rate. We've got 1.75% is the current rate. We've got a balance of about $260,000 with Livingston State Bank. There's an additional smaller loan that the RDA had provided utilizing their own funds. That's about $29,000. So if approved, we would just kind of consolidate that as far as a loan at the same rate would be my assumption. The RDA, unfortunately, was supposed to consider this last night. We did not have a quorum, so they were not able to meet. So they have not made a decision and do not have a recommendation for this evening. I have spoken with the representatives from Livingston State Bank. They are interested in continuing this loan at similar terms for an additional 2 years. The rate would likely be higher than 1.75%, assuming it'd be around 2%. But they have indicated an interest in continuing to do that. So basically the council has to make a decision if we want to provide an extension to that loan as requested or not.
I have a question, Joe.
Just before we start, I want to let the council know we have 3 people who have asked to speak on this, so I want to give them an opportunity
Sure.
before we have a motion. Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead with my question?
Yep.
Okay. Joe, just to bring it up to speed here, this isn't the first time they've asked for a request for a balloon. They had it from 2007 from the loan. At 2012, they asked for an extension to 2013. This is their second asking for this, correct? They're asking for their second extension of the balloon from 2015 to 2017, correct?
Yeah, the first loan, as you mentioned, was due in 2012. Then there was extension provided to 2015. So now they'd be requesting an extension to 2017.
As I kind of looked at this, it doesn't look like they paid much off in all those years. So, and now they want a third extension? I have a real issue with that. Thank you.
Ben, did you have something?
Yes, tonight you want the council to decide yes or no as far as extension. And then if it is a yes, then will there come back the actual loan agreement?
Yeah,
Vote?
we would have to work with the bank to obtain new loan documents for our loan, and then we would do the same thing with the property owners as far as the loan that we would make to them. But at least if we know that the council's agreeable to it, we can work on the necessary paperwork.
Which will come back?
We can bring it back if you'd like to.
The questions?
The RDA hasn't given a recommendation on this?
No.
Okay. When's their next meeting? It's not,
Well, they were supposed to meet last night. They typically meet monthly.
Yeah.
We'll probably be holding a special meeting, but we haven't scheduled that yet.
okay.
It won't be before August 1st.
I'm catching that, yeah.
Too many people out of town in July.
College town.
No?
Just in
Vacations.
general, vacations.
Has nothing to do with college.
Does the council have any other questions, or otherwise I'll go to the individuals who've asked to speak. All right, Rich Christensen?
Three years ago, at the August...
Rich, just,
Oh, I'm
would you
sorry,
give your
I
name,
forgot.
please? Thanks.
Rich Christensen, and I live at 10 South 3rd Street, apartment number 4. 3 years ago, at the August 14th, 2012 Common Council meeting, I expressed my concerns regarding this Bailey Building loan. These are the comments I made then. I would like to repeat, word for word, just 2 things. First, 3 years ago, I said, quote, "I think the Bailey Building loan has turned out to be a bad loan," end quote. And second, 3 years ago, I asked, "Where will this be in 3 years?" Well, here we are. 3 years ago, the RDA and the Common Council disregarded the loan agreement and granted special treatment to the Bailey Group LLC. At that time, the RDA and the Common Council didn't want to and were afraid to deal with, and things were swept under the rug. Today, Platteville has a different Common Council than it had 3 years ago, and I hope this Common Council will act differently. Will this Common Council deal with this loan now and not let things get even worse? Will this Common Council not ignore loan agreements? Will this Common Council not offer special favors? And will this Common Council not sweep things under the rug? That's all I have to say about this redevelopment loan extension, but I do have 2 questions for the Common Council related to loans, and I think now is the right time to ask. First, why was Brian Fritz appointed to the RDA? Although I'm sure he could do an excellent job, I think he has a conflict of interest and should have disqualified him from consideration for such a position. He is a developer who just received a $265,000 city loan and a $100,000 city grant. He has been appointed to a redevelopment committee, and that committee's main purpose is to make decisions concerning city loans and city grants. Second, could you please explain to the citizens and the taxpayers of this city how earlier this year the RDA was able to lose $50,000 on a bad loan so quickly? With all the red flags, how could the RDA not put some simple protections in place? Perhaps the Common Council could take a look at these 2 issues and provide updates at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Jack Ludke. Sorry? Amy Charles?
Good evening. I'm Amy Charles. The property that we have in the city of Platteville is at 85 East Main. I am a principal in the Bailey Group LLC, and I'm here to ask for your support for a 2-year extension on our loan. Obviously, you've had questions about why we would need an extension. I would say to you that the circumstances that we obtained the property at changed quickly due to the recession and due to the constraints that happened within the financial sector. So it made it very difficult for us to get funding that we thought would be available for the project. That put us in a situation where we weren't able to get the traditional financing that we had hoped for in a timely manner. We are in talks with several lenders at this time, and we hope to not need the full 2-year extension, but want it in place just in case so that we don't have to come back to you for an additional extension. The project, I think it's important to recognize that we have not missed a loan payment, and the city has done a pass-through loan for us. So the city, we are paying the full amount of the loan. And we have, again, not missed a payment in the period that we have owned the property. In 2007, the Bailey building was worth $137,900 on the assessed rolls. In 2015, the value is $598,400. I think the value for the community is larger than that, however. And I think the fact that a large commercial building in the historic downtown of Platteville was maintained, preserved, and is prosperous. And I think that that point can't be ignored. So we would really seek your approval tonight for the additional 2 years. I would entertain any questions that you might have as well.
Occupancy rate, what is it right now? Or
We have 8 apartments that are fully rented, and we have a commercial tenant in the lower level.
And Amy, it's true that you investigated developing the lowest level of the building.
Correct.
And could you share the results of that investigation?
Sure. The situation for us with the property right now is that we don't have a positive cash flow on the building. So for us to invest any more in the potential of renovating the lowest level, the the basement level of the property isn't a viable option for us because we don't want to get ourselves into a further debt. So while there are options available, and we are working with a marketing consultant to try to market the property beyond the city of Platteville to find potentially another tenant for the commercial level, that has not arrived at the current time. So we're working within the constraints that we have now with the current tenants that we have.
Amy, do you have partners? Can I ask that question of you?
Yes.
Okay.
My husband, Adam Charles, is a partner, as well as Mark Im and his wife, Juliana.
I just wanted to verify that
Yes.
Mark is one of those people.
Mhm.
Amy, sorry, real quick, you did mention the property tax thing, just to clarify, your point in the assessed value is that you've been paying the city increased property taxes through this property for the past 5-6 years now.
Correct.
Okay, so the city has been generating revenue off of that investment
It's an $8,000 increase in the revenue generated from the property. Correct.
annually.
Annually.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
Other questions?
And it's important to note that you haven't missed a payment.
Mhm.
Okay, I have some questions.
Sure.
What have you done in the last 3 years to increase the value of your property?
Sure. So, and the last, to increase the value of the property?
Yeah, because what you're saying is that the value of the property is being based on your assessed value.
Correct.
But where does, in the last 3 years, have they increased your assessment because you've made improvements? Or has the assessment been made mainly because of the building itself and the value of the building that the assessor has placed for tax purposes?
I guess I can't answer that question because I'm not sure what your assessment process is in Platteville, so I don't know if there was an internal review of the property every year, if that's done, or I guess I don't know that, to be frank.
Okay. You stated that you've been working with lenders. When did you meet with those lenders?
We are in the process of meeting with several lenders. So the situation has been this, is that in previous conversations with several lenders, we were under the impression that unless we were at 80% of the value of the property, that traditional financing would be very difficult for us to obtain. And so we've continued to have talks with lenders informally. But I think we're at a point now where there's more interest in this project. And quite frankly, there's a lot of development going on in the city of Platteville, which I personally believe, when we started this project in 2007, we were one of the first development projects in the downtown area. And so, quite frankly, as a former resident of Platteville, take pride in that and feel like the project that we did helped to protect the community from another white elephant property.
My understanding is lenders will ask for an appraisal to be done. And in the information I was provided, it said that the lenders have asked you whether you've done an appraisal for the property. Have you done an appraisal for the property?
At the time that the lenders were asking for the appraisal, we were talking about valuation again, and knowing what the valuation was. The lenders at the time had recommended not doing an appraisal because we knew it wouldn't appraise out at the level that we needed to get the financing, and we didn't have cash flow to justify approximately $2,000 expense to do that.
So you're saying the banks recommended that you not do an appraisal?
The banks at the time that we were talking to them looked at our cash flow analysis and the value of the property and determined that they did not recommend going through a $2,000 expense.
Are they asking for that now?
They have begun to ask for that, yes. We're in a different position.
You're in a different position, so you plan on having an appraisal done?
Yes.
Okay. Your cash flow and expense information, you provided us with a cash flow sheet, and you've provided us with some expenses and your cash flow. I noticed that your cash flow for the apartments upstairs is more than twice the cash flow that you are getting on your main floor.
Correct.
And that cash flow has been stated the same for the last 4 or 5 years. so you have not asked for an escalator clause for any of your, for instance, your retail, to have an escalator clause so their rent would
Correct.
appreciate as they keep renting the property?
Sure.
Is this property being leased at a fair market value?
I would say no. I would say that we're in a delicate balance where we need the rental from the commercial tenant, and so we are in negotiations with them to increase that rent, but that has not been finalized.
Do you have a lease with that tenant?
We do not at the current time.
So that tenant's on a month-to-month. So that tenant could give you 30 days' notice, and you would be without that as well.
Sure, that's possible, but very unlikely.
Okay, but if that should happen, then would you be in a situation where you could make payments on the loan?
We would do what any other property owner would do, and we would do what we had to.
So at the present time, you're not able to get bank financing for something that you've had for the last 8 years.
And I would say that we are not able to get bank financing for the last 8 years because we took on a project that was, frankly, a white elephant. We paid twice the value of the property to acquire it so that we could begin the renovation and redevelopment of that property. And that has put us behind from an equity standpoint and made it impossible for us to get the traditional financing up to this point.
Okay. I guess I'm having some very difficult questions to ask you because it is the taxpayers of Platteville that are actually making this loan to you. Even though you've been paying on a loan at a pass-through rate of 1.75%, which is unbelievably low, considering that most banks right now would have a much higher rate. And you're expecting the city to pass that rate, our rate, on to you. The only reason we're getting the rate is because we're a city and we have bonding.
Sure.
So would you be willing to pay a higher rate?
I think if we get traditional financing, we will be paying a higher rate. So I guess
No,
the
I'm
question to
asking
that
whether
is-
you would be willing to pay a higher rate to the city of Platteville.
Sure, I think we just discussed 2%. So yeah, we would.
You going, no, that's a pass-through rate. Would
So
you be
you're-
willing to pay more than
Sure,
the
if that
pass-through rate?
funding was used to pay down the debt, sure.
Okay, would you be willing to do multiple payments per month, reducing your
I'm
interest?
confused as to whether or not you heard the comment about cash flow, because if the cash flow is an issue, the cash flow is an issue moving
Well,
forward.
what I'm saying is, your cash flow is our cash flow, okay? I look at this as a management problem. I see that you're not able to increase the rent that you're paying, getting paid, because of certain situations. Your P&L that you presented us is only up till November of last year. We have nothing to finish out. Last year is 2014. And I have some questions about that as well.
We'll make sure that we get you the most current records.
But that's not going to help me this evening, trying to
Okay.
make a choice. One of the things that I find that is interesting in your cash flow is you give us your expenses, but there are no management expenses.
Because we haven't taken any management fees on the property in the entire time that we've had it.
So
This was a
the
labor of
profit that you made from the previous year,
There is no profit, sir.
but you indicated that you are making money on this. Am I correct?
No. We have a negative cash flow.
Well, if you have a negative cash flow, why is the city supporting you to have a business that has a negative cash flow?
We had a negative cash flow for the past year, partially due to the tornado that hit in the city. And so we had damage that would have normally not occurred that we had to incur costs for. So there was some, we had I believe we had some additional insurance payments that we had to make. We had to pay our deductibles. We had other expenses.
I'm not trying to put you in a difficult situation, but would you be willing to give us additional collateral?
If I had it, I would give it to you, and I would also give it to a traditional lender, so we wouldn't be having this conversation.
So I'm trying to figure out why the city of Platteville should extend your loan.
At this point, the city of Platteville has only risked the loan, and as we have been a good loan payer, paid all of the payments, increased the value of the property, and increased the tax base for the city, I find it to be in the city's best interest to continue this project so that the city doesn't have to take possession back of the property, quite frankly.
But we're not the first lien holders on the property. Am I correct?
That's my understanding.
So if we're not the first lien holders, even though you file for bankruptcy or whatever, we may not get our money back.
Why would you move to take a project that is working towards a positive outcome and turn it into a negative one? That's my question.
My question is, why haven't you been able to prepare for us a statement in which you are trying to show us what you are doing to have a cash flow? If you've been keeping the rent the same for the lower level for the last 5 to 6 years in business, when renters or when people have commercial properties they lease out, they have escalator clauses built in.
I agree with you. I think the situation that we find ourselves in is that the commercial tenant that we have has been somewhat difficult for us to work with over the period of time. And we have done our best to make that relationship as positive as possible moving forward because of our current dependence on that tenant. But as I explained, we are working with a developer to seek out an additional tenant for that space.
What plans does this developer have?
The developer has several contacts that he's made with external possibilities, and that those are still on the table.
Have you done any advertising?
Yes.
And where has that advertising been?
We've advertised in various places, and JD, I don't know if you want to help, but we advertise on loopnet.com. The property is listed there. It's also listed in several other places, and our marketing executive works with other commercial real estate people in the state of Wisconsin.
Okay. I think that my understanding is, I guess I have a real problem that you haven't been able to show that you've been able to get a loan from a lender, and we have to support you this past 8 years, and now you're asking for another support for another 2 years. Myself, in business, that means that something's been wrong. You furnished us a basically very little on what you plan on doing, other than saying you have a marketing consultant that's going to do such and such and such and such. But I haven't been able to really find anything on the internet that really provides me that.
So have you checked loopnet.com for the property? Have you checked loopnet.com for the property?
I actually pay loopnet.com.
Have you searched Bailey Building?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but I don't see anything else. I don't see what else you've been doing to bring that into fact for the last 3 years. If you're starting now, don't you think it's a little late?
Those relationships have been in place before now. So we have been working on this.
Okay. So,
Tom, do you want to send it back to the RDA for conversation?
well,
Because it sounds like that's really where you want to put it.
I want to see
I think we need to vote on it.
something happen.
Well, we should have a motion on the table to either
Is
table
Jack
it.
still on the?
We have one
to
more
hear
person who
from.
would like to speak.
some more
Tom, if you're finished with your question?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Amy, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, we appreciate your consideration.
Eileen?
Yes.
May I have a question?
Of Amy?
Yes.
Okay,
Please,
Amy, if you would take one more question?
Sure.
My concern is this is the second time you've asked for an extension to the balloon payment. And in your management plan and setting and working with this, I would have thought you'd have been able to set this up so you would be able to take care of it the first time around, but especially when you're given another first extension. And then when I understand, and the reason I asked a question about partners, there's a track record that sits out there for someone that really has a problem for me because of past practices. And so that's one of my issues with not wanting this to be extended. Thank you.
I would hope that you consider the fact that my husband and I are involved in this project and we take it very seriously. As I said, I'm a
Yes.
former resident of the community
Yes, you
and
do.
the project means a lot to me. So,
Yes, you do.
Thank you.
You folk too do.
thank you.
All right, Jack?
Yes, I'm Jack Ludke, the Executive Director for the Main Street Program. And I understand, because I stood here 3 years ago too and supported the request at that point in time for the loan on this property. And I guess the overriding question about why it's need to have another extension partly has to do with the climate of the business world and the availability to even market this space. Not only the space, but to market the building in total has not been good. It's just now, that climate is just now turning the corner in regard to either merchants taking a step forward to come in to take that larger space, and also from a standpoint of if they sold the building. It is now a climate where that possibility is more relevant to be able to do that. To the question about what this means in terms of future developers looking at Main Street property or downtown property, if you will, with older buildings, it is a difficult situation for all of the communities in Wisconsin because developers do not want to deal with rehabbing these buildings. They cannot justify the additional cost because of the regulations for underutilized space. And we find that with every opportunity that we have to renovate underutilized space to make it a situation where someone can actually move in, particularly if it's a change of business. Now, I would like to take the council beyond this particular project and the request on the table tonight and look forward a little bit. We are going to have other developers or need for developers with other projects, for instance, the Old Steve's Pizza building, that are going to have to probably come to the city to get additional help on that project to redevelop that building. That's the new white elephant, the one that the Bailey Group developers eliminated with that building has now been transferred a block up the street to the Old Steve's Pizza building. We would hope that a developer in the near future would take an interest in that and be able to change that. And so I asked the council to look beyond that. But in regard to this particular issue with the Bailey building, they took that step. They invested that time. And I think that with the marketing plan that they have in place now, which may not have been made clear to all of you, and also the possibility that the building is maybe more likely to be sold at a price, that climate has changed. To go to a bank, and I did sit in on some of these discussions over this last period of time, the last 3 years, and everything that Amy indicated to you is true. The banks want to help, but they are tied, their hands are tied to all of their numbers. And that situation is what they're trying to correct now. And the climate for that change is, from the recent discussions they've had with some lenders, would indicate that it possibly could take place. But I think the council's real position here needs to be what's coming in the future. And we would like to see, the Main Street program would like to see the council to take that initiative and support it. I think the RDA's mission also, in bringing that to the table, reflects that. That's what they made the loan for in the first place, was to get that building rehabbed and make it a viable building. It has, as Alderman Knoll indicated, full occupancy upstairs. It's one of the easier buildings to rent. The market rates upstairs are good market rates for apartments. And the problem has always been, when I've sat with the financial people, the tenant on the retail side. So I will answer any questions you may have.
Jack, I have one quick question for you.
Sure.
And I won't bug you here with it any other than this. Do you think that the city should continue or become more of a bank with competition with our local lenders?
I think
we seem
that,
to be a bank.
well, I think that the mission of the RDA is intertwined with the mission of the city should become an agent that is an agent of last resort. You cannot get, and it's just not Platteville, you cannot get substantial financing for rehabbing these buildings in the downtown area. They just are very difficult to cash flow, and that's part of the problem we're having with rehabbing underutilized space. And for those of you who have not made that tour of underutilized space, there's a lot of it in Platteville. And a lot of it, we're working, for instance, right now with the dance studio people on a underutilized space that's going to require a lot of TLC to get it through the regulations on change of use. They're going to have to do a lot to that space. And I'm not sure that it even can be done. But the point is, yes, there is a time, and that's why the RDA was established. That's why they came through the city. If you want to keep a viable downtown, you're going to have to be an agent involved in this.
And
We
to
all would like to
clarify-
see new construction. You know, that's the easy way. But that's not the way you're going to maintain the historic character of your downtown.
I think an important point too, I don't, Mike, you slipped in this question about competing with local banks. I think the RDA only funds people who can't get traditional lending, right?
Yes.
So there's no competition there. It'd be great if the traditional lenders did want to lend to these projects in particular, right? I think that's
Yeah.
agreed upon.
Okay, I understand.
And there are
Thank you.
community pools in some of the communities, the bigger communities in Wisconsin, where the local banks have gotten together and they do fund a pool of money similar to what the RDA or the city here does. This is just one avenue that was chosen years ago for the city to allow development like that to take place.
It just kind of makes a tough situation for us, I think, because if these are basically loans that traditional lending institutions will not touch, then we know where these loans are on the scale of A, B, C, D, so on and so forth. Can the city afford to keep taking those kind of risks? You know, because we've had situations where we've had issues.
Well, and I think that's a good point, but I think to that discussion point, each project is going to have to stand on its own. And there has to be a risk taken in this, or the lenders, the traditional lenders, would jump up and lend money. So there is a risk element in it. But then it becomes a decision, do you want your downtown and the historic buildings to deteriorate and go away? Or do you want to maintain the core of your city and help developers and entice developers, which are hard to find? You know, it's difficult to get, and I don't care if it's Platteville or if it's, you know, Waukesha or Madison or downtown Milwaukee. It's hard to find developers, particularly more in small communities, but it's hard to find people that want to rehab existing buildings. It's just not a real good cash situation.
Jack,
Yes.
you had mentioned that this was a white elephant, which the owners had taken upon themselves to work in for the betterment of the building and for the community. And you also said that we have other white elephants. But the city only has so much money.
Well, this was a pass-through, remember?
No,
Everything's
but
done
what
as
I'm
borrowing.
saying is, we get this money that we borrow, actually, the taxpayers are paying for it. Because basically it goes for bonding. Am I correct? Don't we get the money that actually we have to borrow that money? We borrow it from or from any lender and we pass it through.
Is that a question for Dwayne?
Yeah, it's
Well-
not, I'm not
Well, what
a
I'm
legal
saying is,
expert on
but if
how
we're
that
limited,
financing works, but it is not part of bonding.
I think that's an RDA question when you're talking.
if we're talking about white elephants, and we have white elephants, and we need to put more money in the white elephants, but the lenders are not willing to do that.
We have a lender.
No,
Livingston
no,
State
no.
Bank.
We don't have a lender. We have a lender for the city, not for the development. The lender is giving us the loan because of our financial status as a city.
So Tom-
Because they wouldn't be giving us that loan otherwise.
Tom, your question then is, will the city be going out to borrow this money to loan to these developers? Dwayne, the answer to that question is, we will be going out to borrow the money to pass through to the developers?
Right, that's what Joe had talked about previously, right? The current bank had offered that they would keep on doing it at a little slightly higher rate than it is currently.
Right, and we would, am I correct, we have presently passed that interest rate on. But there is still, the fact is, the city is becoming a bank for these developers. And basically, we're not getting the same information that we're getting that a bank would request. If a bank's not doing it, then why aren't they doing it? If it's the cash flow, then they need to correct their cash flow. If they cannot correct their cash flow, why are we supporting them? Just because we want to have a building downtown that has a business in it?
Yes.
Can I interrupt you for just a moment? Dwayne, can you explain to Tom how a pass-through loan works and does not affect, I believe, does not affect the city's borrowing?
Right, as long as the loans are paid, there's no, the amounts that we borrow and pay the loan to the bank is equal to the same amount that that they would be paying us, so. it's
Right,
pass-through
but-
Plus,
loan.
there's some money there that we use for administrative costs.
Yeah, but not through the pass-through. If they're getting the same loan rate as we're getting, we're paying administrative costs for that ourselves, the city is. So we're actually
Dwayne, do you
paying
wanna
more
explain
money.
that?
So,
I think the RDA has addressed that,
Yeah.
from what
Yes.
I know. Joe, has the
well,
RDA?
but this is, the RDA hasn't met. And the RDA wasn't given enough information to make a decision. This was only brought to us basically 3 to 4 weeks ago. If the developers knew that they were running into problems and were not going to be able to get bank financing, to wait until the very last minute puts us in a position where I think the city needs to ask questions. Why are we put in this position? Why didn't they come to us earlier? Did they come to us earlier to ask, hey, we're having situations, can you help us out? But that was not done. What I'm saying is, we as a city, I have an obligation to the taxpayers. I have an obligation to make sure that things go well and we're not back here 2 years later with the same situation. This has got to come to some type of situation where either they're making extra payments if we're going to give it to them, or we have, the citizens of Platteville deserve to be not passing money on through.
Tom, I think you've made your point, and I'm sorry, I don't want to totally cut you
Yeah,
off.
I understand,
But
but I'm
I
just-
think you've made your point, I think you've asked your questions. I don't know if anybody else has anything else they would like to add, Mike?
Real quick, Dwayne, doesn't that, if we borrow money, that affects our borrowing rate? Okay, we have a percentage of what we borrow over our total assets. This, even though it's small, is added on to that total, isn't it?
Right, it's part of that 5% limit that we can borrow from.
Okay,
from
thank
the
you.
state, yeah.
Now,
Okay.
Can we pass this on to the RDA for further conversation, or just?
Actually, the RDA wouldn't meet in a timely fashion. This
Okay.
payment is due on the 1st.
So we can make a motion?
And I would like to say a few things about this. First of all, I understand it is incredibly difficult to remember 2006. It is incredibly difficult to remember 2007. What is not incredibly difficult for me to remember is walking by this particular building and looking at a stairway that had dead pigeons and seeing windows on a second floor that were broken and or covered up with all kinds of cardboard and plywood. It was, I wouldn't have called it a white elephant. I would have called it an eyesore. It was awful. And that was 2006 and 2007. And I really think that this whole issue is strongly related to what happened in 2008, when real estate values plummeted. Now, these folks, when they bought this building in 2006 and 2007, I doubt very much that they, like several of my friends who bought properties, thought about the fact that, geez, next year my property could be worth 22, 30, 50% less than it is now. I have friends that have told me this year they are finally not underwater with their real estate. So I, first of all, applaud these people for doing this because it was an eyesore and it's not an eyesore. They are keeping it occupied both in the apartments and on the first floor. I think that takes some management skill. I don't hear that they have ever missed a payment. So, you know, whether or not, I think that's applaudable too. I don't have a problem talking to my constituents and saying, these folks fixed an eyesore. They suffered a 2008 decrease in property value that no one could have predicted. They are working hard to keep their building occupied. They are working hard to increase the value of that property and pay more taxes now. They are making payments on the loan that we have extended to them, and they are working with banks to try to get a loan. So, you know, I understand there's all kind of questions. I suspect the RDA would have had a discussion of this nature, but frankly, just like Jack said, developing in a downtown is not, it's not a panacea. It's much easier to develop on a green field than it is in a downtown. So I support the extension of this loan. It is my hope that the Bailey Group LLC will be able to get bank financing in the next 2 years, and that we won't be at this here again in August 2017. But I just don't believe that it's appropriate to continue to, some of the comments almost seem to be toward saying, you know, too bad you made a bad judgment. Well, we all make bad judgments, and I don't think anybody could have figured out that 2008 was going to be the kind of ugly time it was.
May I make one more comment, please? I can appreciate the fact that questions are being asked, and I applaud the council for asking those questions, not just about this particular development, because I think those questions would have to be asked in the future about people coming in that want to develop other pieces of property downtown. So to your questioning, Tom, I think it is appropriate, and I think it will give these developers a stimulus to get the job done, to get a performing tenant, whether it's the existing tenant or a new tenant, and get that building privately financed. And the council needs to understand that that may be necessary in the future. And I think it's a good thing to question these developers and to make sure that you're doing your job. It sounds like you're doing your job in terms of your constituents' desire to make sure that the taxpayers' money and any city contact is done in the right way. So thank you for the questioning, and I hope you do vote in favor of the request for extension.
Thank you, Jack.
So can I make one additional comment? I echo the sentiments of Barb, and I just wanted to add that as a former employer, I was able to. I had 3 of my employees move into that apartment in varying times because they were young professionals looking for a place to live, and that is one of the nicer apartment buildings in the Main Street area of Platteville. And so it was a really nice recruitment tool even to have apartments available for young professionals in our downtown. So I wanted to say that thank you for that as well.
So you
I
want
would
a
add
motion?
what Barb said about the building. I remember that the roof was so bad that when you went into the first floor of the building to shop, they had garbage cans collecting rain. So this definitely was a building that most people probably would have just said, I don't think I want to tackle this project. I'm very glad you did. It's a very nice project. The apartments are great. I'm sure that they'd be happy to show them to you. If you have not seen it, they did have an open house. I do think it's the city's role at times to work with the developer, just as we did with the developer on 4th Street earlier in this meeting. And I think if this couple and their partner wanted to walk away from this project, they could have done it rather than come and request an extension of the loan. So I would applaud their efforts and hope that we have more good rehabs on the downtown area. So are we ready for a motion?
Relative to the RDA, it has been the RDA's position that we add 1% to whatever the bank extends as a loan percentage. And so I would make a motion that we extend this for 2 years till August 2017 at a loan rate that is 1% additional to whatever the bank loan rate is. I mean, I don't know if it'll be, if it's 2%, then the loan would be 3%.
Second.
If it's 2.5, it'd be 3.5.
We have a second on the other end. We've had an extensive discussion. Thanks for everybody's comments. I'm going to call for the vote.
Doss?
Yes.
Stockhausen?
Yes.
Nall?
No.
Killian?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Seaboth Wilson?
Yes.
Den?
No.
Motion carries.
All right. Next item is reconsideration of action on recent sidewalk waivers. Joe?
Either one.
Tackle that one or? Howard, okay.
I'll get started on this.
All right.
On March 24th, the Common Council approved a partial waiver of sidewalks along Business Highway 151 and a part of Commercial Drive for the property at 1775 Progressive Parkway, where the McDonald's is going in. On April 28th, the Common Council voted 3-2 against granting a waiver for installation of sidewalk along Business Highway 151 for 1741 Progressive Parkway, which is the new Sherwin-Williams property going in. The effect is that Sherwin-Williams will be required to install a sidewalk that does not connect to other properties. We had a Safe Routes meeting, and they recommended that the council reconsider the waiver granted to the McDonald's property. The council, we had 2 options for developments of sidewalks in that area, and the Common Council asked that the Community Safe Routes Committee review those options and come back to the council with their recommendations. At the July 20th Safe Routes meeting, the committee voted 5-0 on 3 different motions. Motion 1 recommends that the Common Council require McDonald's 1775 Progressive Parkway to install sidewalk on all frontages. That includes Business 151, Progressive Parkway, and Commercial Drive. Motion 2 recommends that the council approve Plan A of the June 17th, 2015 staff memo to expand pedestrian and bicycle connectivity throughout the community. And motion 3 was the Safe Routes Committee recommends that the Common Council uphold the existing sidewalk ordinance and that waivers no longer be granted. But if in a very rare instance that a waiver is granted, the Safe Routes Committee recommends that the Common Council require the property owner, developer, to contribute double the estimated cost of the sidewalk to a designated sidewalk fund for future installation. The reason for double is based on the fact that a lot of times the cost of installation continues to go up a lot faster than any interest rate that the city can receive for funds in our possession. So they felt that that would provide sufficient cushion so that 3-5 years later that there would be sufficient funding to install a sidewalk. And staff is basically asking that the council rectify the apparent inconsistency between the two decisions.
Again, we've had some people who have asked to speak on this issue, so I think I will ask those individuals to speak, and then we can ask questions if you have some. So Molly Zilke, I don't know, she said she wasn't sure if she could get here. I do not see her. Robin Fatzinger?
Road O. I am a member of that Safe Routes Committee as a liaison for the Platteville Community Arboretum. The Safe Routes Committee is an advisory committee that makes suggestions to the council concerning the safe travels for pedestrians, cyclists, and others. Recently, as Howard pointed out, the Safe Routes was asked to discuss the placement of sidewalks along Business 151 near the Sherwin-Williams and McDonald's. Howard pretty much explained what I was going to say to you, so all I'd like to say is that I would support and encourage you to consider all 3 of the motions made by Safe Routes. Our ultimate vision is for pedestrian and bicycle connectivity throughout our community. With that said, as long as I have an opportunity, I would like to also express my support for the Moving Platteville Outdoors and the PCA funding that they'll be talking about later this evening for the paving and lighting of the trail. Thanks for your consideration.
Jack Ludke? And I should note, by the way, that Molly Zilke registered in favor of sidewalks.
I'm also going to speak in favor, and I'm going to speak as a former businessman and business owner. And just some observations that I've made on the highway, 151 Business Highway. Whenever I go out there, there are people walking, whether you realize it each time you go out there or aware of it, but there are people walking through the weeds on there so they don't have to walk in the traffic lane. There are people, actually I've seen some pushing bicycles because they can't ride them through the weeds along the way, and they don't want to ride out in the traffic lanes. I believe that's still 45 miles an hour coming in the highway. And it is only one portion of Platteville that I think needs some sidewalk attention, but that'll come up later. My overall concern, and I guess from my past business experience, is people use sidewalks. You have a business and you put a sidewalk in, you have walk-in traffic. And I don't think it can be ignored. And with the development that I've seen, and I've lived in several places, they usually require sidewalks immediately, and the developer is aware of it. And the one thing the developer doesn't like to hear is that there's an unknown that hits him later. So if the city has a reputation of maintaining their mission to have the sidewalks in and available, developers and businesses will accept that. But if they know there's an opportunity, like all of us, to get a waiver and not spend the money right up front, they of course will request a waiver. And I don't think that's a good path to follow, the inconsistency there. for the future of Platteville. And as was indicated, the connectivity for bikers and walkers in the community, I think, is very important to have. So I would ask you to, I would speak in support of having sidewalks and maintaining your request to developers to have sidewalks in these locations. Thank you.
Council discussion.
I highly recommend that we go with sidewalks the entire stretch from East Mineral to, is it Commerce? The end of that stretch by McDonald's. Progressive Parkway. Yesterday, I saw a family with 3 little kids, and their bags from Walmart walked that stretch before they connected with the street going on East Mineral. And I found that very sad, that we as a community cannot afford to insist on sidewalks in the most, and I call it progressive area of town. If we expect our community to use those stores, how are they gonna get there? Yes, we do have a bus system, but I think there's an issue there about getting all the word out. But at that time was this family, little kids, each had a bag in their arm, walking that stretch. I definitely think we need to push for these sidewalks to be installed.
Excuse me.
Council President,
Yeah.
can I ask a point of clarification? Are we, tonight, we're basically reconsidering only their first recommendation relative to the
McDonald's.
inconsistency at McDonald's and Sherwin-Williams?
I
Is
was
that
going,
correct?
I was going to remind the council that we had discussed sidewalks in this area and agreed as a council that we would have a work session. However, we also said that we would like Safe Routes to look at the question of sidewalks. Unfortunately, they couldn't do it before our last meeting, and so we said when they do have a recommendation, please bring it back, and we would bring it back. The reason we're looking specifically at McDonald's is, yes, because a waiver was granted, a waiver was not granted to Sherwin-Williams, and as was stated, I think the business, in this case McDonald's, needs to know if the council wishes to change their mind, which we have the right to do, and require sidewalk on all sides of their property, then I think, in fairness to McDonald's, we need to make that decision this evening. Otherwise, they will be under the assumption that they do not need to put that sidewalk in. The bigger issue of connectivity requires a work session, and we will do that. So tonight, the question is the sidewalk waiver for McDonald's.
Question for you. Clarify for me. I don't remember seeing this on information and discussion last council.
We had it a meeting before that we had talked
Right, but it wasn't
about.
on last council. Like the
Because we
normal
didn't.
procedure that we follow.
Well, it was on the meeting before that, Mike, we talked about it and said that we would like Safe Routes to
Correct.
look at it. They could not look at it prior to our last council meeting, so you're right. It wasn't on then, we were waiting to get a report back, so this,
Thought it would have to go to information discussion again before we go to action,
No.
which is our protocol, normally one to the other.
well, we have at least one session where it's information discussion, and that was discussed, so.
I was gonna table this for our work session, so.
I think that, I think in fairness to McDonald's, we need to have that discussion this evening,
All right.
okay?
May I make a motion?
Anybody else have any discussion on this?
Anybody else have any comments they'd like to make?
No, but you can make the motion.
I make a motion that we recommend installation of sidewalks on all sides of McDonald's. So basically getting rid of that waiver.
Amy, would you please, I don't think you want it on all sides of McDonald's.
Well, on the sides with the Business 151, basically connecting to the existing
On the
sidewalk going
three
into Progressive
sides
Parkway.
of-
Sides.
Yes,
It's already in the back.
yes.
So the 3 sides, which would be, I can never remember the name.
Progressive Parkway, Business 151, and yeah, what was that?
Commercial Drive.
Commercial Drive. Yep.
Commercial Drive,
Okay.
thanks. Is there a second?
I
Second
second.
motion.
I think Barb, did you say it, Barb?
Yes,
I
but
think
so
Barb
did,
got in before you, Ken, sorry.
Really?
So we have a motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Doss,
Yes.
Stackhausen,
Yes,
Nall,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Seaboth Wilson?
Yes.
Den?
Yes, I'll save my arguments for work session.
Motion carries.
All right.
So
Next
will the
item.
rest of this come back next time?
Sorry?
No,
You're talking about a work session.
Yes, a work session, we will discuss that at the agenda setting. I would like to have a
We
work
might have a
session
work
as
session
soon as
next time.
possible, yeah, as soon as possible on this one, right. All right, so we're on to information and discussion. The first one is, contract 615, moving Platteville outdoors, MPO Bridge. Howard?
This is the second of the two contracts for the Moving Platteville Outdoors project. Earlier, the council approved a contract for paving and lighting. This is to construct a new bridge over the Roundtree Branch, Long Valley Road. It's a little bit upstream of the current bridge in order to connect those parts of the trail. We had split this because we felt that some contractors may be more experienced at paving and lighting versus bridge constructions, and it would allow more contractors to bid on whichever portion they believe they're most proficient in. On July 21st, we opened 5 bids. The low bidder was Rule Construction from Dodgeville, base bid of $177,438.45. There was an alternate bid to increase the bridge rating to allow light vehicles to cross the bridge for maintenance purposes. That would increase the bid by $3,500, or a total of $180,938.45. We've received concurrence from the MPO committee that we should include alternate A to allow light vehicles for maintenance purposes. So at this point, staff would recommend that the council award the contract to, including alternate A, to Rule Construction in the amount of $180,938.45, subject to DNR approval.
Okay, this is just information and discussion. Anybody have any questions on this?
Just one verification for me, Howard. This is all money that was proposed in the whole total package, and because the DNR requires one entity, being the city, to do all the bidding for the trail, so that's what we're doing, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, contract 715, Circle Drive sewer replacement, that's one item, and Keystone Walmart Bike Path Project.
Okay. If you recall, last year, late in the year, we bid a project for doing the bike path that would connect the backside of Keystone Parkway up between Walmart and Menards. The bid was over the budget, and the project was canceled without awarding the bid. What we did this year was we combined that project with 2 other projects. Circle Drive, that's the private road on campus where they have those 3 residence halls, Huguenin, Pickard, and Rockford, I think it is. We have a sanitary sewer line that goes down that steep embankment to our sewer interceptor line in Memorial Park. The line is old, it's undersized, and we've been trying to figure out how we can do that without destroying the trees. Well, last year the trees were destroyed for us, so we're using this as an opportunity. There's a storm sewer line that the university owns that parallels our line, and we're working with the university. They're going to fund the replacement of that line simultaneously with our project. And they're also asking us, as part of this, to do some repairs on 2 outfalls for storm sewer pipes. As I said, we opened up bids, and you see in our project, the university has a little over $30,000. Our water and sewer utility will meet prior to our next meeting to hopefully approve their portion of the project, and then our project, $76,148.29 for the path, and it was budgeted at $80,000. It's about 15,000 less than what the bid was last year.
That wasn't a 2014 budget? Howard, refresh my memory, I'm sorry. Bike path?
The path was in the 2014 budget.
Okay.
But when we bid it as its own standalone project relatively late in the year, the bids came in over budget. So what we did was we moved the money into this year. We budgeted $80,000 for that portion of the project, and our bids came in under budget this year.
So we still have that money, it's just moved over?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ken?
Question, Howard, the outfall repairs, are those down at the valley? I want to go down and take a look, is that where they're at?
They're in both valleys, if you will. There's the one which is just down below this Circle Drive in the Memorial Park area where that storm sewer dumps into the Roundtree Branch. That's one of them. And then on the back side of the Giese maintenance building, there's that tributary to the Roundtree, the one that goes through the low point in College Drive. You know, the low spot in College Drive. Sure. It continues downstream to the west, and it goes behind the Giese maintenance building. And so they have storm sewer outfall from their buildings and parking areas that dumps into that tributary down there. And they noted that there are some issues with that outfall. And so we're working in cooperation with the university to do this as a single project.
So this would be, for example, use of riprap or something like this?
Yeah, we can talk specifics later if you wish, but actually it's using what they call a shore mat. That's the same materials that we used, for example, on Stonebridge Road and on Union Street. If you want more information, we can discuss it later, but it's a proven product to reduce erosion and everything else in the scour from those outfalls.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Next item is moving Platteville Outdoors request for funding. We have a couple of people that would like to speak. Is there any staff person that? No staff person at this point?
I think Jean was gonna make the presentation.
All right, so we have two people who have asked to speak, Jean Weber and Cindy Tang.
Yes. Sorry.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Your name, please?
My name is Gene Weber. I'm from the Platteville Community Arboretum and the Moving Platteville Outdoors Roundtree Committee. And I might add, can you hear me okay, Amy?
Yeah.
And I might add the Moving Platteville Outdoors Roundtree Trail Committee is being led by the Platteville Community Fund, Building Platteville, the City of Platteville, and the Platteville Community Arboretum. What I've just laid in front of you, you've seen something very similar before. And if you just concentrate on the first page, what that is an up-to-date finances. The attachments are only to remind you of the number of fundraising projects that have been involved with this project by 1,500 people, involving 1,500 people, and over 500 names that have actually made direct contributions. That's now closer to 550 as a result of the last couple of weeks. I would point out that at this stage, and this is changing on a daily basis, but 57% of the funding for this trail has come from outside of the city of Platteville. 13% has come from the city of Platteville, and 30% of it has come from other private donors within the city of Platteville, being either residential or local businesses. I do want to go back, and I know I've said it before, but I want to thank the council for their proactiveness in getting this going, referring back to the $50,000 original challenge, and then in January of 2014, adding $150,000 to that to kick us off for the effort to get the DNR grant. Initially, in January of 2014, we really had no idea for sure what this trail was going to cost because there was no money for design. We came up with a scientific estimate, so to speak, and that was $1.2 million, which we shared at that time. The $200,000 that the city had committed as of that time represented 17% of that $1.2 million. The projected final cost is $1.676 million. And I only point out that 17% of that would basically be $285,000. As of this morning, we had 137,850 to go. As of right now, we actually have roughly 133,000 to go, thanks to donations today from Mary Rosemeyer, Bob Digman of Digman Construction, and the Platteville Journal. What I'm here for is to request of the city council what we have requested already of our local businesses and our residential groups, and that is more funding. Percentage-wise, we are simply asking that you maintain the original 17%, which means we are asking for $85,000 more. Why would we be asking that? When the city first challenged PCA to match the $50,000 to eliminate the steps, add a bridge, and reconnect the trail, that was a 1-to-1 match. When the MPO came back and asked the city, when we decided we wanted to go after the entire paved lighting, the whole thing, we asked you to up your total to $200,000. At that point, instead of a 1-to-1 match with the city, we were proposing 6-to-1, obviously in favor of the city. MPO is now asking that the city simply maintain that match on the final projected cost, especially since the community, local business, and outside community have already done much more proportionately. 28 fundraising projects, 1,500 people, as we've discussed, the 550 direct donations. Another reason why is to encourage more community leadership groups to help the city bring more amenities to Platteville using contributions to avoid taxes. Helping guarantee 100% completion of this one may help incent other collaborated efforts, other collaborated groups to do the same. I would add that candidly, based on some constituent input, instead of 6-to-1 relationship in the future, maybe it needs to be a bit more balance. But I'll leave that for future projects and council members to determine. Our request is only to maintain the 6-to-1 ratio at this stage. On August 11th, when you will actually vote on this, you will be given an updated fundraising status at that time. Clearly, it would be great if I could come in here at that stage and say, no need for you to consider the requested action. We have 133,000 more. But candidly, because August 15th is the deadline for raising the money to 100% complete this project, because it is going to start the week of the 17th of August. They'll begin tree trimming along the trail at that time, and then within a week or so later, they will begin actually grading of the surface on over a mile section of the trail. One other thing I would like to clear up that's come to my attention that's not on the sheet in front of you, but earlier, as we were approving the previous trail bid, it had been mentioned that we might not complete all the lighting. And the idea that we had was, hey, let's, we've been through significant fundraising. We as a leadership group and we as a community are getting a bit tired of this. It's time to wrap it up. But when we found out we had 200,000 left to go, and after we checked with the DNR and found out if we wait a year, request another DNR grant just to finish up the final lighting, the DNR shared with us, that's all okay. We can't guarantee you that. But what we can promise you is there will be additional requirements if you come back. There are a couple of bridges that we may want you to refurbish or replace, and very quickly, instead of $200,000 gap, we came to realize it might be $400,000 or $500,000. Not having the appetite to take that on, and recognizing that some of the folks that have contributed to this project really want the lighting to go all the way out. This has been such a widespread community involvement that although it has never has it been promised that we would guarantee fully lighting that trail, we really need to make that happen just based on the effort and the coming together of our community that our community has demonstrated, and to avoid a bigger fundraising effort in the near future that, as I said candidly, we or the community just may not have the appetite for. That's the first part of my request, $85,000. The other portion of it, and I share this only because I don't want any concern about transparency in the future. We would also ask that you consider setting up a $50,000 contingency fund for this project, candidly with the goal of not having to use it. The reason is, come the 15th of August, 2 weeks from now, every avenue of fundraising will have been exhausted. We have 28 fundraisers out there right now visiting with 140 or 150 local businesses or people of means or avid bikers or anybody that we feel can make a difference for this project. And there is a second mailing going out to avid trail supporters this week. The bottom line, though, is we're not going to be able to go back to the community after the 15th of August. It does not make practical sense. Now, MPO does have a contingency fund set up. It is $34,000. That may be enough. Can't guarantee it. But want you to be fully aware that there is $34,000 in this cost that we have designated as a contingency fund.
The backup fund that we're talking about is truly only a contingency backup fund that you control. We don't want it. You have it here at the city. If it's needed for the trail, you have access to it. In closing, I really want to say your council's progressive leadership on this effort in the early days, the $50,000 challenge, coming through early on with the $150,000 to help us get that $688,000 grant from the DNR and Fed Recreational. I know you had concerns that day as you were making that decision, but there's 688,000 reasons why you made the right decisions that day. Your leadership on this project has resulted in a very collaborative community effort that enables you to use this as an example to the community and to encourage more of the same in the future. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Gene.
Okay, clarification.
Gene, clarification?
Under 2, setting up 50,000 contingency fund. MPO is 34,000, so that's, is that part of the 50? Or are you talking a separate
I'm
50,000 that makes it 84,000?
Correct. I'm talking a separate 50,000.
So 84,000.
Yes. And Ken, you can mark that up to conservative Weber. I don't know that you'll ever need that, but Howard and I have talked, and it's not a bad idea to set that aside. We don't want any second guessing coming back later on. As a community, I really want to say we have done the best that we can. And when I say we, I'm talking about a whole lot of leadership and a whole lot of people that have contributed.
Gene, is this 50 in excess of the 85 or included in the 85?
In excess of.
Okay, thank
We need the 85. If you will honor the request for the 85, obviously roughly 135 minus 85, I think that's like 50,000. Candidly, we still have to raise in the next 2 weeks. And we're out there working hard to do it.
Other questions? All right, thanks, Gene. Cindy Tang?
Good evening. My name is Cindy Tang, and I'm not part of PCA. I'm a donor, and I'm coming here as a donor that has donated to this project. I think PCA has done an amazing job. They've raised more money than I thought was ever possible. They've collaborated with the entire community. I thank you for your support, but the bids did come in higher than what was expected, and I would support the city continuing the support of the trail to make it happen. I think the citizens of Platteville have spoken in their donations and telling you that they want this. And this week, Southwest Health Center increased their donations significantly. I think, you know, Gene and his group are going back and talking to absolutely everybody again and bringing them the same information they're bringing you. And the community is stepping up again. So I would encourage you to also try to do the same.
Thank you. And Nathan Curry?
Hi, my name is Nathan Curry, and I'm here representing the Platteville Community Fund, which is the philanthropic organization here in Platteville, and speaking on behalf or in favor of the trail project and the reconsideration of the additional funds. We, as a group, have been very supportive of this trail project. Our motto is "For Good Forever," and we are focused on doing what we can with the funds that we receive to try to do that. And we've talked over the last couple years about how we really wanted to see a project like this take off in Platteville, because we would consistently get grants or applications for funding of little projects, or funding of supplies or labor for an event. But we talked about the idea that we really wanted to see something like this happen in Platteville, that community members would become involved, would get motivated, and get the whole community motivated, which Gene and the PCA and MPO have really done, and it's been inspirational. And so we've tried to support it as much as we can, and we'll continue to do so with this idea of the contingency funds. I think we have some opportunities ourselves to further support the project as it moves along. And just as a community member, I've supported it, and Gene came back, and the law firm that I am part of, Cott McKeegan, here in Platteville, stepped up and got a couple other businesses in town to try to bridge this gap as well. I know I've been a part of a project of a number of business owners that have reached out to other business owners, and we're really trying to do our part as business members, as community members, to make this happen. And I realize and I recognize that I'm sure a lot of you have realities to deal with that make this difficult. But if there's any way, I would encourage the council to consider making this final push as well with the rest of the community to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have individuals who have asked to be noted that they have registered in favor of this request: Jan Wire, Louise Brockman, Tom Nelson, and Robert Wire. They did not ask to speak, but they are in favor of the project and the request. Any council discussion or questions?
I have
about
one.
this?
Any of the grants or trusts, I should say, that are in our budget, can they be tapped? Some trust monies? You know, we have some trusts that the city holds.
I'm not aware of any that would be applicable to this. The one that we just recently received, the very generous one from the Clayton family, is specifically for Smith and Legion Parks. So, you know, it's kind of hard to do that. But
What about the Biney trusts?
there may be other possibilities. We'll have to look at those. But I'm hopeful that by next time, maybe between me and Luke and Dwayne and some of the other ones, we can come up with some suggestions as to where we might be able to find that money if the council decides to go ahead with this.
The binding trust probably wouldn't be applicable in its present state, as the council has already designated that money towards the Platteville Parks Endowment Fund. You could tap into, well, no, the revenues wouldn't be until 12 trailing quarters. Ignore that.
We'll come up next time with some suggestions if you decide that you wanted to.
I just would like you to look into those monies, because I think that's what the intent was, is be part of the community, those monies.
Okay.
You need,
Yeah,
I'm finished.
okay. Something else to add to that?
I do. I visited with Luke and Dwayne. about the issue too, because the decision really needs to be made sooner versus later.
Right.
And I understand there's 60,000 in the park impact funds, you know, that could be used. And also 150,000 that was scheduled for capital improvements of City Hall, and with it being this late in the year, I don't see that that is being used. So those were just sort of things that, in talking with staff, that I came up with.
I'm sorry I'm laughing, but every year I look at that fund and.
Okay, but anyway, that was what I had to offer.
If there's a desire on the part of the council to have staff look at some funding sources,
Yes, I would love to hear some
the
recommendations.
consensus to have the council look at
Will we
some-
have time, though?
Everything we've mentioned has already
They
been
can,
earmarked.
the staff can bring us information for our next meeting.
Information with a vote, do you think, at that meeting?
Yes. I think given the time constraints MPO is under, that yes, it would be for a vote. This is our information discussion,
Put it in our work session.
We've been discussing this.
discussing the MPO effort in our work session,
Sure, we could add, we can have more than one thing in a work session.
for the connectivity question, you mean?
Yes.
That certainly could be brought
That
up.
would be a good way to discuss it. Let's add that to our work session of next council meeting.
I agree. I
have
think they're separate issues, but
Yes,
But you
and
could still have two issues.
I really have an issue with discussing the MPO trail request for this additional funding in a work session that is not publicly televised.
Work sessions, everybody can come to them, though.
I don't care. I would personally vote against that. I
The work
believe that
session.
this group has
A work
come
session.
in public to ask that they have shown that there is public support, and I believe that their request, like any other request, should be heard for action in a session that is a part of our regular meeting.
Do we have enough time?
That's the whole.
yes, I believe we do, Barb. We've had the request. The request is now in front of us. It's for the 85,000, the additional 50,000, and staff will look at where funding might conceivably come from, and we will discuss
Okay.
this at our next meeting and
You-
vote at that time.
I just want to verify what Cindy said. So you're saying we could potentially look at the City Hall remodeling potential there, and what was the other one?
We'll look at a number of different possibilities for funding for this up to the $135,000 total that MPO has requested. We'll look at any number of different options and present those to you. The next council meeting is on the 11th, and Jean said that they need to finish their fundraising by the 15th, so.
Okay.
I do have a point of question.
Yes.
Does that mean you need to have the funds by the 15th, or you need to have a commitment for funds? And at what point in time do you actually need the dollars?
Nate was just pointing that out to me. First of all, August 15th, we need the commitment. Local businesses are pledging money now that may be paid this year, or it may be paid as late as 31 March of 2016, depending on what tax deductible year they choose to put it in. And the brief conversation Nate and I were having is we also wanted to make sure the council understood, you know, the money doesn't necessarily have to come out of 2015 city funds. It could come out of 2016 city funds. We just have to make sure we have enough money in so the city can pay its bills. So the project has to be completed by August of 2016. That's when it has to be completed. The construction company can obviously do it sooner, but from discussions that we've had in a pre-construction meeting, it sounds like some work's gonna start right away in the fall, which is great. The public is gonna be able to see the progress. But clearly, there's gonna be work done next spring. They can't, from what we heard, there's no way it's gonna get done before the end of the year. Is that correct, Howard?
Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll have information available for us at the next meeting. Ken?
The concern I have is, what about Business 151 sidewalk? There's money coming for that.
That would be another discussion we'll have to have.
Yes,
at
I'd
a
like
work
to have that
session.
discussion and look at that discussion and also MPO.
We can certainly discuss them together. I don't think that we need to make, my feeling is the budget discussions will center, or will include the sidewalk. The MPO request is going to have to be addressed before
That's correct.
we actually look
But
at the
still,
budget.
there has to be a source of money
Yep.
for both.
And that brings us to the next item, which is the 2016 budget schedule.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They're leaving and I have my check here. So the next
Thank you,
installment.
Harriet.
We're hot off the press.
Check.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. Excellent segue onto our next topic. One of the first exciting items that you and I will get to work on together is our 2016 budget, and it is actually one of the most important things that we will work on together. Normally, I do think ideally we'd like to have a strategic planning session and kind of really dig into big picture goals before we start the budget process, but because of timing this year, I don't see that as being feasible. But instead, I'm recommending a work session actually to discuss what I'm going to call budget themes. And I think that that's something I can facilitate myself rather than involving an outside consultant if you're comfortable with that. What I've handed out to you tonight is just the overall schedule. Some of these dates are important for staff, not necessarily critical for the council. But I did highlight 3 items that were important for the council because there would be additional meetings to your schedule. One of which would be coming up somewhat quickly. That would be, I think that's a Thursday, August 13th. And that would be when I would be proposing to have that special work session to talk about the budget themes. We would then use those themes to inform staff so that they could be thinking about those themes as they're working on their budget and draft work plans for the upcoming year. You'll also see highlighted October 15th and 20th, and those are 2 additional work sessions that we'd be proposing once we have a draft budget for the council to be able to kind of dig in and ask questions related to that draft. So I am looking, I guess, for tonight, confirmation that August 13th will work. Okay.
I have a doctor appointment.
That evening?
Yeah, the 13th.
Getting some no's.
At 7 p.m.?
I'm not here then. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm not either. So I guess we need to look at this,
Okay.
Karen, and see, check schedules. Is that what people are saying right now? They're not 100% sure that August
Thursdays
13th
okay,
works?
Tuesdays and Wednesdays wouldn't be good days.
I'm sorry, Mike?
Thursdays are great for me, Tuesdays and Wednesdays would not be good days.
Okay, so you like Thursday. Barb and Amy are questioning whether or not.
Oh, no, I can make,
You can make it?
I can make
Okay,
the
so we've
13th.
got 2 yeses. I believe
Okay.
I can make it. You can make it, you can make it. Barb, you don't know yet?
I don't know yet. What time are we talking?
7 p.m.
Well,
7
that
PM.
might work. That'll work. I can
All
get
right.
back from Madison.
So Barb, wherever you are, we just have to get you back from there.
Yeah.
The way she drives, she can make it.
Well, I can't drive, so.
No, I think
Well,
you're
they don't let you
this
have
is
this,
the wrong.
you don't let you have the
wrong
throttle on
bar.
the steering wheel yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it'll
All
take.
right, I would say right now that if we can get 6 out of 7, that we might just have to just go ahead and go with that.
No, I can
Karen,
be
so.
there at 7. I didn't realize it was
Yeah.
7. So,
Okay.
Okay.
All
So
right,
we'll-
terrific.
We'll say the yes to the August 13th date.
Okay, and then if, I'm hoping that by identifying the October dates this early, that you'll be able to block them on your calendars. Nope, we still would have a conflict, okay.
Let me
I'm
give,
sorry, I
No,
just,
that's okay.
And actually, I will have a conflict with the
Okay.
October 15th one.
October 15th.
20th I could probably do, but not the 15th.
And
I
for,
just move them back a week. I happen to be gone out of the country
Oh,
for-
shucks.
for that
for a
entire
good
week?
portion of October.
So if, so Barb, for
20th is
both
a
you, the
Friday.
15th and 20th don't work either date? So,
Either.
so you'll forward to me the dates that
Yep.
you're out of the country? All right, we'll identify 2 new dates and send those out and see if we can get a consensus for October. And
October
otherwise, we'll
20th is
proceed
probably gonna
with
be a Friday.
August 13th for the theme setting.
That sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
A question I have is, format, will the public be allowed to ask questions and make comments?
During the budget theme workshop?
Yes, during the budget meetings.
I would envision that as being a council work session, so the public is invited to observe, but it is your work session for you to set the themes for the upcoming year.
that the
So they wouldn't
public,
necessarily be active
so the public
participants.
cannot speak.
Correct.
But the public has the right and the ability to contact us individually whenever they would like to.
But it may be too late.
Well, if they know that this date is coming up and have
Well,
the,
as far as what's being talked about, it may be too late.
well, it would be published. I mean, the topic, obviously, the budget. I don't think we
It's
can.
very difficult to do a work session with budget items where you're doing a number of things and having the public speak in favor or against. We would be in a situation where I think we'd be
they can
put in a
come,
difficult
but I don't see
situation.
their input is necessary.
And perhaps I can add, this is really about setting themes, so really sort of broad, overarching sort of themes or goals for the upcoming year. And then we would bring those themes back, in the form of more detailed, specific budget proposals and work plans. And those would be done at regular council meetings where the public obviously will have several times to comment on the more detailed outcome of some of those broad themes that we're going to be basing our work off of.
So, for instance, a theme might be finally remodel City Hall. That would be a theme? Is that the kind, I'm not saying that that should be a theme, I'm just going to say, or deal with facility challenges.
So I'm trying to think back of themes of the previous community I worked in. So, for example, a theme was to foster redevelopment in the commercial nodes.
Okay.
So that was an example of a theme.
Okay.
And then we got more detailed from there.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank
Is
you.
there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We'll vote.
Goss,
Yes.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Seaboth Wilson,
Yes.
Den,
Yes.
motion carries.